Hello, everyone. I am Vipul Lalka. I head up payments platform and capabilities for TD Bank. It's a pleasure being in front of you, and I'm pleased to invite my colleague and friend, Dr. Hossein Rahnama. He's the CEO of Flybits. We have worked together for almost the last 5 to 6 years now on a variety of things, and we are happy to share some of this, the general topic being payments, data, and AI. So with that, why don't you do a quick introduction to the topic, and then I'll hand it off to Dr. Hossein Rahnama for a few questions. So first, payments. It's such an exciting space to be in right now. As a lot of you have already seen, more than 150 plus countries in the world are going through this huge transformation in payments. And when we say transformation, the most talk is about real time. Countries like Australia, UK, India moving to real-time payments. The way I think about this is it's less about the real-time nature of the payments, but the more exciting part for me, for businesses, for consumers is about the data. The data, because of this ISO 20022 format that enables data to be passed as part of the payment transaction. What does this mean? Basically, think of a use case, a business, a supplier and a business relationship. Typical today, a supplier has to send an email with an invoice. The business receives the invoice. Somebody in the payments department has to then make the payment. Sometimes you have multiple invoices that combine together, and then the payment is sent out. It could be hours, minutes, days, sometimes before the payment is actually transferred over to the supplier, and so on. You get the picture. It is a complex process. In the future, this could be simplified with that use of the data field, the ISO 20022 data field, as well as the real-time nature of the payments by making a request for payment. A supplier makes a request for payment, includes the invoice as part of the request. The receiver gets it, immediately makes the payment, knows what invoice is being paid. The supplier gets the payment, and on both sides, it's all reconciled. Think of all the multiple backend processes that are now collapsed into one, and a huge army. Some companies actually have huge armies of people looking at the reconciliation process. All this gets simplified. That's the future. That's the promise of real-time payments, but really it's the data. So with that introduction, it's an exciting space, as I mentioned, to be in payments. What I'm here to talk about with Dr. Rahnama and Hossein is about how data is being used in various use cases and examples around the world to give you a flavor of the art of the possible. And especially with Hossein being an expert in the field of AI, how is Flybits and his company actually looking at this space? So Hossein, maybe I'll begin with the first question. You have actively engaged with issuers as well as payment network providers around the globe. Can you talk to us a bit about what are you seeing in terms of, especially this topic of the day-to-day, payments data, the relevance, how is it being used, and the potential for the future?
Thank you, Vipul, and thanks for having me here. I had the opportunity to work with Vipul and his colleagues at TD over the past 5 and 6 years, and we truly demonstrated this notion of future of banking and future of payments. And in all of our use cases and activities, data played an important role. When I discuss with colleagues, I always say that data is a new asset class for banks. If you think about how you deal with a big tech firm, let's say a social media giant, when you go register an account with them, in many cases, you give up the rights of your data. But think about the position, the historical position of a bank. When you go deposit a check in that bank, in your account, that money belongs to you. You trust the bank as part of a legal contract to manage your financial asset. In our point of view, the bank of the future will use that trust factor and can play a very big role using data, using the same set of legal contracts. Imagine that you can go to a bank and deposit your data in a data instrument, and they can correlate it, they can manage it, but it's your data. Anytime you're not comfortable, you can delink your data and withdraw that. That's a very powerful thing based on the physics of data that position banks in the middle of a very big ecosystem, allowing businesses, SMEs, governments, even health organizations to share data in a privacy-preserving fashion. Of course, payments is a key utility that we all need to pay, to access services. But of course, you can use payments data to predict, to understand behaviors, but not in a black box, old-fashioned way. You position the user in the driver's seat, create consent, create permission, create algorithmic transparency, so they can decide how they can work with their banks to generate value. So a lot of the work that we do, not just with TD, but our global set of customers, is to demonstrate how we can use this payments data in a privacy-preserving fashion and turn that data into experiences that can bring value to the end customer.
That's a lot of important data there. Like, if I split it into two parts, let's take the first part. Maybe let's make this real for our audience over here. So do you want to take a couple of examples of how you've either done proof of concepts or actually implemented them in the field? And then the second part, that just to give you a heads up, what I'll talk about is that privacy. I think privacy is on everybody's mind, so we'll address that as a second question. But maybe start with a couple of examples, and I can share one that we've done actually jointly later as well.
Sure. I can bring few examples based on our deployments around the world. The first one I'm going to use, think about a very classic service offered by major banks, mortgages and lending. In the past, a mortgage instrument for a bank was essentially a loan with some legal contracts around interest, around terms. But to that end user, a mortgage is about their home, their security, their family, their job. So how can you use data to really translate that core classic financial product into an experience? So one of our examples is we now use machine learning models to predict who may be looking for a mortgage and pre-qualify them, offer that on the digital channel, let's say a mobile phone, but alongside that, we provide access to a preferred utility company for electricity. We provide services around a preferred and trusted moving company. Now, we provide offers about a preferred cable service or a telecom service. How can we do that? Enabling the bank to share data based on the consent of the user, bringing a telecom operator, an electricity company, so that they can provide an end-to-end holistic experience for a move to a new home. Now, the question is, well, how do you do that so that the privacy of the user is protected? In the old days, usually people said, oh, let's create a data lake. Let's put everything there. And the question always became, hey, hold on a moment, that's my data. That cannot come to your network. So in order for us to create such experiences, we need to have a holistic view. What are we going to do in our infrastructure? What are we going to do in a way that the data is being shared in a privacy-preserved fashion so the data cannot be co-located? And then turn those algorithmic capabilities into experiences that can provide those valuable experiences to the end user. So that was an example on how data and digital assets can turn a classic financial product like a mortgage into an experience that is creating a lot of value, both financial, quantitative, and qualitative for a bank's user.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the use cases that we worked on together, I'll name at least a couple. So one we've used at TD around bill payments. So what we are doing is you're actually using data that we have on our customers, how the payments go through their accounts, and then use machine learning to figure out when the next bill payments may be due. So that's something that we've introduced to our customers here in Canada. We look at, hey, you have 2 upcoming bills. We also look at their cash flow and their balances and are able to predict if they may go into a situation where they may run out of short of cash. So we are able to actually help our customers. And again, it's using this data, and payments is one of those things where I read a stat once where more than 75% of our interactions, of banks' interactions with customers, are around payments. So it is a wealth of information to actually give back, help our customers. So that's one example. The second one, I think we had done a proof of concept around the Christmas timeframe, where we had a gift local, buy local campaign at TD. So we were helping our businesses that were suffering because of the pandemic, the shutdowns that had been issued in Canada. So we actually ran a trial where we invited our small business customers to make offers. So think of a coffee place that wants to give 10% off to someone who is within that neighborhood and potentially could use that offer. So this is not to attract them into the coffee house during a lockdown. This is more around, if you're out and if you're near our coffee place, you might as well make you that offer. So we did that. As you know, that trial was amazingly successful. We had great click-through rates. And again, that goes to show how data used in the right context can be really beneficial to our customers.
And I want to add to that, Vipul. You raised a very good point, because if you think about business banking and corporate banking, no matter how amazing the marketing is around these core financial products, at the end of the day, there are utilities helping that business. But what TD is doing here is that not even they provide the necessary means of financial instruments, but they are bringing value to that small business owner. They are bringing customers to that business owner. They are bringing insights so that the business owner can make better decisions. In our view, that's the future of banking. Right. Yes, you need to have a bank account. Yes, you need to have a line of credit and access to capital. But how can the bank of the future use data to bring value, to bring customers, to help your business? And that's something that very, very proud in our collaboration with TD in the example that Vipul brought up.
No, makes sense. And if I could summarize the points that we've discussed today, I think the first one that stands out for me is that privacy by design. The customer owns the data, and in the future, the customer is going to decide how his or her data is actually going to be used to benefit him or her. That's the first thing I took out of this. The second thing I took out of this is, with all the change going on in the payment space, more and more data is going to become part and parcel of the payment transaction, which is going to allow us to enable all these various use cases we talked about and many more. We only touched on 2 or 3, and actually, by those privacy by design principles, help the customer in their day-to-day journey. As you rightly said, it's not about offering a mortgage. I'm never excited about getting that mortgage. I'm excited about buying my home, my dream home. So thank you very much, Hossein. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, Vipul.
Thank you.